somebody just took a pallet to the head. That was really, really bad. You're right. The plyboard, the plywood, excuse me, the boards of plywood are moving up. They've been dislodged from that makeshift wall where they were set up with tripods almost, and now you can see them manually being moved up into the crowd of counter protesters, and you're seeing these scuffles break out one after another. Lots of very heavy sticks, very heavy barricades, scooters, all types of things being employed to inflict harm on the other side here. And so it's just what you're seeing here is just an overload of testosterone that is just peaking at this moment. Whereas these two sides come together, there is just an animalistic side of human nature that just allows for this type of violence when tensions are this high. And it's just a natural progression of what we've seen here. That's right. That's exactly right. So what happens, just a hypothetical question, what happens when somebody tries to break into one of these administrative buildings or one of these classroom buildings, just like we saw across the country tonight? What happens if a group of these protesters decides to occupy the building? These are the things that are foreseeable and what's being done, right? The question is, what's being done? Do you just let this go on night after night? Or as Tim Pulliam said, is this finally the end of this encampment, which, I think a lot of parents who have students at this university probably would say it never should have gotten this big in the first place. But far be it from us to judge. That's not our job. You could just see what has transpired and where this has ultimately led to. Right. Unbelievable. Yeah. The wall is gone, Mark. Take a look at that. Take a look at that shot right there. That's where the wall was built earlier this week and has stood fast the entire week. They've been dislodged from whatever was holding them up, and they've now been manually pushed onto that lawn on the west side, on the top, near the top part of your screen, where all of the pro-Israeli protesters were screaming earlier. Now you can see their territory, so to speak, is being pushed upon by the pro-Palestinian side with the plywood. They're using that wall to push forward. Plywood and umbrellas being used. Even the tents are being moved. Those blue tents were about 40 or 50 feet back, and now the tents are being pushed along with the plywood. And so that seems to be what's agitating the other side the most, is that if there was any piece earlier of, on either side, with one side or either side respecting that line of delineation halfway through the quad. Look at this. Somebody is being beaten. Somebody is being beaten with a stick and punches in the middle of the lawn. Somebody is being badly beaten at the bottom of that brawl right there. Look at that. Look at that. Somebody is being dragged and beaten in the front of that plywood wall. Just incredible. Where are the police? Where is security? Where are these people? Where is authority here? It is something I have never covered without any sign of enforcement, law enforcement, security whatsoever. This has gone now on for over an hour and a half, and it is absolutely appalling, in my estimation, that we have not seen any response. I've just never seen it. This may be a sign of things to come, or this may be what, society has become, but I have never seen it. In my career, I have never seen this level of violence without any response from any kind of law enforcement or authority whatsoever. Right. Yep. like a spear. That's right. This of any sort. Campus security. I mean, we saw a handful of black and whites pull up, what, maybe 40 minutes ago? Something like that. Certainly not enough. I mean, I don't know how large the UCLA campus police department is, but I would imagine if they sent the entire department here tonight, it might be outnumbered by what we're seeing here, just based on the fact that we started with upwards of 300 to 400 protesters in those tents. So you've got the people in those tents, and now a large group of counter-protesters that have come earlier today and been basically, I mean, for the most part, we were here earlier today, Mark. During our 6 o'clock show, we were flying over, and things were pretty peaceful. I mean, you had both sides lining the wall there, but they were respecting the boundaries, and there was no signs of violence whatsoever or even tensions. You're right. Exactly. Punches being thrown left and right, left and right. They're trying to break the wall down. They're attacking the wall. They're trying to kick down the plywood and the folks on the other side of that plywood. And you're going to see more umbrellas flying here in a second. You see another brawl breaking out, more sticks being swung, a lot more fist fights up and down the line of barricade that has been moved forward into the lawn here. It's just continuing to escalate. You could just tell. I mean, we at least had cycles of peace earlier. Now it just seems like we've been seeing just 10 minutes of nonstop violence here. Look at that. Somebody kicking the plywood, bear spray or pepper spray sprayed back, and then they fall over there. You can see that wall of plywood is now kind of evaporating. And there's really just not going to be much left between either side except for those metal barricades. And sooner or later, they're going to be gone too. Ooh. More. No, it's either pepper spray or bear spray. Somebody can tell me which one's yellow. I think both might be. But in any event, somebody just took it seemed like a couple of good squirts right to the face. And a lot. By the way, we're talking about dozens of people who have brought this spray. It's not just one or two people. There are a lot of people with cans of spray in their hands. And also, you noticed that there was some more pallets being thrown over that barricade as well. So you can see some more metal barricades being used. The plywood is being put back up, but occasionally you'll see somebody try and either pull it down or kick it down. It just is escalating by the second here. Nothing about this indicates things are going to simmer down here, at least anytime soon. Show the officers. Yeah. Bottom, right in there, the bright light. Oh, those are the same guys as before, yeah. Yeah, those are security guards, yeah. AC, air conditioning. That's right. And instead of people breaking it up, they're just they're instigating even more. Nobody here is trying to break any of this up. Not even, I mean, forget law enforcement. There's basically none. There's a group of security guards with khakis on the top part of your screen. They are standing by, well away from the confrontation, just watching it play out. And beyond that, there's nobody else here. Of course not. That's exactly right. Of course not. Yeah, absolutely. What we are seeing, though, is that plywood wall quickly disintegrating. One by one, they're taking more of that plywood and bringing it over to the counter-protester side. So pretty soon, there's not going to be much of a shield left for the protesters on the right, who are just continuing to push forward there on the front lawn. So we're continuing to see, fist fight after fist fight. Pretty continuous now for the better part of the last 15 minutes. But whatever defense they had, which is really, I hate to call it defense because they're also using it as a weapon at the same time. But whatever shielding that plywood and those barricades are providing now, it's becoming less and less of a wall. They've pushed back a little bit. They push back a little bit towards the tents. So they push back towards the original line. But they come and go. Every time the protesters from the left side approach, they push back. The barricades move, and in this case, they've retreated again. So a little bit of a lull finally for the first time in the last 10 minutes. So you don't see anybody in that gap there. No sign of confrontation at the moment. A little lull, which again has been pretty consistent throughout the evening. Where you get these cycles of violence and then a lull in the action. People regroup, they retreat, they regroup, and then they come back again. They try and take some more plywood. They try and tear down some umbrellas. They come back with more spray, and the cycle continues. Where is that call? Where is the call? That's the question. Yeah, there's also a little bit of a triage center, not center, but a triage area where somebody, at least a couple people, were being treated by maybe some medics who might be in this crowd. You can see somebody being tended to right there, as a matter of fact, is one of the people that we saw here. This is on the opposite side of the first half of tents, kind of a couple hundred, about 100 yards away from the front of that plywood wall. You can see more folks milling about here. Again, this is all in front of Royce Hall. If we pan back over to the right, you can see once again that lawn where most of those pro-Israeli protesters have been all day. And now you see it looks like they're a little more dispersed in the last few minutes. I mean, essentially, I mean, unless something changes, it just seems like they're basically, hoping for the best, because there's just no indication that there's any attempt, at least in the short term, to change the status quo here. Now, things are, again, at a little bit of a lull. There's a little bit of inactivity at the moment between the two sides. You still see some things being thrown in either direction, but for the most part, things have calmed down temporarily. We'll see if that holds at all, but the trend this evening has been, again, cycles of, calm, followed by more taunting, agitating, and then more violence. You can kind of get a scale here, Mark, as we look up and down the barricade here on the pro-Palestinian side of things. You get an idea of just how large this crowd is. A bulk of the encampment has moved up to the front line. Not all of them, but a good bulk of them have. And you could see just how outnumbered the other side is here as they start to disperse a little bit. But they're not going home by any means. What I am seeing is they're kind of walking around the front lawn and picking up objects to almost stockpile on the other side here. It almost appears as though they're stockpiling makeshift weapons on the other side in case things flare up once again. That's what I'm witnessing as they walk around picking up umbrellas, picking up plywood, and picking up more sticks. And the big question, I mean, is, what happens, just thinking ahead here, it's hard to think about tomorrow when you're seeing all this, but what happens tomorrow at this campus? I mean, you have to imagine, we just continue to be shocked, but one would imagine that there will be a change in posture, or at least there should be, as Tim mentioned earlier. Is this the last night of this encampment? And what is going to transpire at the break of dawn here when people wake up and make their way back to campus? I just can't even imagine if they continue this posture of hands-off approach without any law enforcement, you know, where do you draw the line? That's the question, right? I mean, I guess it's the $1,000,000 question, but where do they draw the line here? You know, it seems like things are already unacceptable. However, these administrators are very accepting of what we're seeing. It's it, right. Yeah, I mean, again, we're just kind of continuing to keep an eye on this group here. Even as you mentioned, I mean, I don't expect that the posture amongst that group will change. They have no shields, no defense at their you know, at their fingertips there. So, I mean, you can understand why they're being told to stand by because, as you say, they are outnumbered. But if LAPD is standing by and waiting to assist here, why is that call for mutual aid not being put out? Where are the LAPD? Why is that call not being put out? In the meantime, we're just going to continue to see more things being thrown in both directions here, right over that barricade. We're seeing more objects being thrown, and some of the things, some of the debris that is littering the quad there is being used as flying projectiles. Yeah, it looks like a woman just standing with her, you know, she's just again, just kind of, you know, arms wide open, almost as a, you know, sign of martyrdom to kind of like, you know, try me, you know, kind of testing them, taunting them, kind of provoking it almost. But I mean, again, there's been provocation on both sides, to be clear. Now, it looks like a larger contingent of students and counter-protesters, kind of a flurry of activity as a good bulk of them start to move across Portola Plaza. Go ahead and widen out really quick, Rob, and just see if the main body of counter-protesters is still there, or have most of them now backed off. Go right back in there, push into the middle, and see if it looks like a bulk of them are starting to retreat down the block here. I'm not sure why. But some of them were running. Now a lot of them are walking. But they appear to be almost marching in a certain direction. You see somebody with a megaphone there just kind of pan back, if you could, just really quick. Let's pan back over to the wall. I just want to see the front of the lawn there. You can see a lot less people now near that makeshift wall. So a good bulk of the pro-Israeli protesters have now retreated to the other side of the courtyard and are now marching in the opposite direction. So it looks like we might see, an extended period of calm here as long as these two sides stay separated. There's real questions there. Real big questions. If they called for aid, where is it? Yeah. Nobody came. Right. I mean, it should be said that LAPD has essentially denied that at this point. They are basically saying that they have not been called. They are standing by and in communication with the police, but there is no mutual aid en route. Yeah. 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 Yep. So I should say that a good bulk did walk around the block and almost continue demonstrating down the block on an empty UCLA campus other than this quad here. However, there remains several dozen, if not close to 100 people still very close to the front of the lawn there on the opposite side of the makeshift wall. Things have been peaceful for about the last 10 minutes. I say peaceful cautiously because there has been exceptions of violence and some stick throwing and that kind of thing. But for the most part, we haven't seen major confrontation, anything close to like we did about 15 minutes ago in the last several minutes. It seems as though the crowd has thinned. The front crowd has moved back slightly, but they're not going anywhere. They're still, scattered across that front lawn there. So we'll see what transpires. They are using some of the barricades and plywood that they took from the encampment, and they're kind of stockpiling it in the middle of their own little makeshift wall there. They're on the way. Well, that's great news, Mark, and certainly we'll have our eyes peeled. That tweet coming at 12:51. So hopefully in the next several minutes here, we'll see some law enforcement move into the area. Not a minute too soon, because you can see more violence breaking out here at the very corner of the quad, where there has been pockets of violence throughout the night. There's just an opportunity for the crowd to gather on both sides in that corner there, and another confrontation with some of the same agitators who have been kind of starting some of the more violent scuffles throughout the evening. The same players, it appears, are the ones throwing things and taunting the other side. So you can see a group that just ran away there, somebody on the opposing side with some more spray, water bottles being thrown in his direction, and you can see another confrontation brewing here on the northwest corner of the quad. No, not over yet at all, by any means. More swatting, more umbrellas being used there. You see them consistently every time they ambush this wall, they try and walk away with more pieces of the wall, and that we're seeing it again. It's been going on really, the entire time we've been here. They're just slowly peeling away at the pallets and the plywood. All night. You can see a lot of people there starting to gather again. They're on the corner, on both corners, quite frankly. And another protester going for some more pallets there, trying to, again, peel away at that wall, peel away the wood, peel away the pallets, and more stuff being thrown, sticks being thrown. A lot of remnants of 2x4s, basically littering that courtyard. And it almost appears as if the larger group that had walked away moments ago have kind of made their way back into the area, because this corner of the quad is definitely swelling, looking much more similar to about a half hour ago. About 20 minutes. About 20 minutes. We're gonna squeeze another 20 minutes out. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Not quite yet, guys. Mark, I'm looking out the window here, and I'm literally, we've all got our eyes peeled. I can't remember a time where I've so anxiously been looking for any sign of help. As we look out across over a mile, I do see some flashing lights off in the distance. They appear to be responding to something else. We're looking around. We're using the camera as well as we peer through Westwood here, looking up and down these streets. Here come a group of West LA officers right here. They have parked in front of the popular Chick-fil-A in the center of Westwood. They are starting to gather and get into position. That would basically be the southwest corner of the UCLA campus. Finally, starting to see some response by LAPD gather on the southwest corner of the campus. I think they went in a different, They could be. It's very possible. Originally, the last time I saw them, they had actually gone in a separate direction. I think they are a separate group, but I can't say for sure. Ooh, look at that barricade. A large, heavy metal barricade tossed right onto, I mean, if it wasn't for the plywood, somebody would have gotten hit there. Show me that. Looks like some more violence breaking out at the barricade here. There also appears to be a fire alarm going off in the building adjacent to the quad here. That's part of the reason for the strobe. But you can see some more punches being thrown and some more scuffles breaking out right along the perimeter of that barricade as they try and peel away more plywood. You see people taking swipes at each other, taking swipes at the plywood and the pallets, and a lot more punches being thrown. The broom. It's the end of a broom, it looks like. Anything they could find, right. Somebody got sprayed, and now the person with the broom is beating him. Look at this. Sucker punches being thrown at the same person who was, I think somebody was trying to escort him away from the brawl, and he is being followed. He is being followed and taunted as he makes his way towards the end of the walkway here. There are equal parts protesters and news media in that shot right there, but you can see a lot of cameras and cameramen following this injured individual into the corner as they try and treat him. And you see a lot of flash bulbs going off there. There's a whole contingent of news media in the corner kind of following that injured person. Still looking across Westwood here, looking for any sign of flashing red and blues, Mark, and I just don't see them yet. I'm hopeful that they are on the way, but we just don't see them yet as we look around here, continuing to keep the nose camera on the dividing line there between the pro-Palestinians and the pro-Israelis who have been countering here for much of the afternoon into the evening. And you see it has turned into anarchy here on the quad in front of Royce Hall. A lot of sucker punches being thrown. We see occasionally folks getting beaten with various sticks and pieces of wood, anything that they can get their hands on being used as a weapon on both sides. The violence is clearly coming from both sides of that barricade. The taunting has been going on all evening on both sides. Both sides have been provoking each other, and the violence is continuing as they continue to chip away at that wall, one plywood board at a time. Yeah. I mean, more fights breaking out, umbrellas being pulled away. And somebody in the middle, there's a lone pro-Palestinian protester there on the bottom of that brawl. You can see him running through there. it's really, really tenuous down there. Somebody trying to break it up finally, but really not seeing any kind of coordination whatsoever. It is just scuffle after scuffle as they continue to try and get their hands on what remains of that wall. By tomorrow morning, this encampment is either going to be gone or somebody's going to have to make another trip to Home Depot because the plywood is starting to run out. Once again, a good bulk of those counter-protesters have retreated again. You know, pleasant to see, but unfortunately, it's the ebb and flow of things. They encounter they engage in these encounters, these confrontations. Violence breaks out. They retreat. They collect their weaponry, their makeshift weaponry. They collect their breath. And then they start approaching that barricade again. So it's a pattern that has clearly been established over the last 2 hours, and that pattern is continuing. Now yet another metal barricade being pulled away here. So continuing to peel away at that wall, and now you see about 50 individuals once again, fists up, arms up, ready for a fight, approaching the wall once again. And here comes more fight, more things being thrown. More liquid, more pepper spray I saw there just a second ago, more projectiles, pallets being thrown, pullboard being peeled away, and more liquid being tossed over that barricade. It's unbelievable. It's truly astonishing. I can't help as I try and gather information on my phone here. The entire country is watching this at this late hour. If you are up on the East Coast, there's a good chance you are watching on social media or watching ABC7 even right now online and watching along with us here on the West Coast because this is going to be the top story across the nation tomorrow. UCLA will be the center of political protest across the United States tomorrow. And that is what we're seeing here. We are seeing an unfortunate display that is going viral online as we speak. At least a few. Can't tell yet from my vantage point whether they are, that's CHP. That's CHP Highway Patrol. So a welcome sight nonetheless. Yep. It's a state university. That's exactly right. So makes sense. CHP would absolutely be the first persons you would call if you were outnumbered here as campus police. As for LAPD, again, you read the tweet where we believe they're on the way. That at least that one patrol car was CHP. There was a few more behind them, Rob. Would love to get any markings on the side of the other. There was a few others, right? There's a few moving down Portola Plaza. If we find them, we'll try and identify them. But there they are. So CHP. So this is a contingent of CHP officers who are pulling into the area at least. They're still nowhere close to the violence, but they are at least on campus. LAPD, we believe, is on the way for mutual aid that's been called upon. It's apparently taking quite a while to get here. This has been going on, as you mentioned, for the better part of 2 hours. Yeah. There's somebody in a gas mask, Mark. See that? They've dispersed slightly a little bit. Yeah, kind of the same trend. They've kind of moved back slightly. They're, again, I think, simply catching their breath for all intents and purposes. They kind of catch their breath, they regroup, and then they, make another stab at trying to get more plywood. Right now you can see them dispersing a little bit. The quad is a little more sparse. Go ahead and widen out and see if we can get a very rough crowd count here. It looks like a lot of people have actually vacated towards the rear. Go to the top right there. You can see there's a group that's kind of walking away there. If you just take there's a good chunk of all of that plywood. They've literally dragged it to the opposite side of that lawn, Mark. I mean, there's a good half of the wall that is now sitting in a pile across the street. Very interesting. They've basically dragged about dozens of pieces of plywood across the lawn and across the street there. I would say this crowd is thinned out pretty considerably, Mark. I don't know if there is law enforcement down there, perhaps even the CHP cruisers who are making PA announcements. There very well might be. That's not confirmed, I can't say, but there may be some announcements being made to leave, because it certainly appears that the numbers on the pro-Israeli side of the fence have dwindled considerably. Here is more university police pulling in here. Again, CHP on the scene, LAPD en route, and the mayor monitoring from Washington, D.C. They're on the perimeter, yeah. Yeah, we're looking for them. They've moved around. Yeah, yep. This is those original 3 CHP officers that moved in here. There's university police, and that's still, I gotta say, that's about it. That's still about all I can see from up here in terms of law enforcement. But it is welcome sight to see that crowd dwindle, even if just a little bit on the lawn there. There's at least, I don't know, I would say almost half as many as before, but they're scattered out now, so it's a little difficult. Still, though, you have a lead group here who is in very close proximity to that wall and continuing to kind of taunt. And here we go again. And look at that person. I mean, that, it's important to note here that there are more than just students. That is a much older gentleman. Maybe he's faculty. Maybe he's somebody else. We have seen lots of faculty out here over the course of this week. But it is definitely more than just students, suffice it to say. push another 10 minutes, 10 minutes max. More spray. Notice how many umbrellas there were earlier. There are almost none left. Almost every umbrella that we saw earlier has been basically shredded. So the umbrellas are exhausted. The plywood is basically a block away at this point. Most of the plywood has been peeled off. There are still some boards left being used as shields there. I think the bulk of what remains are mainly the barricades that you mentioned. And that's pretty much it. They've backed the barricades back up to the original perimeter of the encampment, right up against all those tents. And you have folks now on both sides of that barricade right here, this time on the southwest corner of the quad. And you can see more taunting, more yelling, and that same person with that red bandana continuing to provoke the crowd. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that same we're kind of keeping an eye on this person right here who has really insisted on being the center of attention during much of this ordeal. To be frank, he is continuing to taunt the other side. His buddy's continuing to peel away more and more plywood, and it's almost as if the mission here is to just kind of, destroy the encampment. I mean, they're basically just trying to tear it down. Yeah. So if I mean, just think about it, Mark. If we play this out and this continues, and the plywood is eventually gone, and the barricades are torn down, the next thing left is those tents, and those tents could be very, very dangerous. I mean, you can't even begin to think about the amount of damage that those tents could do if they're used as weapons. And you have about 100 of them. You have about maybe 200 tents across the quad here. So it's really a scary sight if this just continues into the wee hours of the morning. You can imagine them basically continuing to plow into this crowd and try and take more of the materials they've used to build this encampment in the first place. Because as far as law enforcement is concerned, it's still pretty sparse. I count 3 CHP, a handful of UCLA campus police, still no sign yet of the LAPD. But whatever is here is not coordinated yet. It's not organized. I'm sure they do have to marshal their forces, as you mentioned, but so far, no signs of police activity yet. It's still continuing. You can see the crowd kind of building again, and there goes somebody, line drive straight into one of those tents. More projectiles flying over that barricade. It really is, look at this. I mean, continuing to pull away at that barricade. Whatever umbrellas are left, they're going for those too. They're basically trying to tear down the front wall of this encampment. The encampment was allowed by administration. The wall was allowed to be built by administration. And now the counter-protesters are attacking that wall and whatever defenses are left and basically trying to destroy the encampment. Now, they are outnumbered. If there were any more counter-protesters here, we might be talking about a much different story. The only saving grace is that they are outnumbered, and so at some point, you have to imagine that more and more and more of these people will retreat. But, for the time being, the violence is continuing. Scuffles continue to break out. Flying objects are continue to be thrown on both sides of that barricade. And there is no sign still of law enforcement. A voice of reason, yeah. He's trying, he's even talking, he's talking to both sides, trying to create a little bit of a truce here, at least a little bit of a, oh man, look at that. I mean, that's so again, the same characters that are, interjecting here and continuing to keep the fight going. That's what we keep seeing, is the same people involved in these various fights. But now more weapons being used here, even as that lone individual tries to create some distance, tries to, play a neutral role here. But it's just too late, quite frankly. I mean, what we're seeing here is just a continued escalation. The only thing that might be a saving grace, as I mentioned earlier, is that it seems like the crowd on the left is slowly dissipated over the last half hour, but there's still a large number of them, at least 100 by my count. Yeah, I should just warn you, Mark, as we hold this shot right here, we're going to try and keep the camera on this largest group on the left side there as we start to pull away. Unfortunately, it's time for us to refuel up here in Air 7 HD, so we're going to head back to Van Nuys. We've got our second helicopter being prepared at the airport right now. We're going to continue our coverage here, but we're going to try and hold this shot temporarily as we start to pull back into the San Fernando Valley for fuel, and we'll hopefully be back here in a few. But right now, all eyes on the center of the UCLA campus as some more CHP pull into campus. Here they are. LAPD right there. Wilshire Division units, it looks like. We've got UCLA and CHP, a much larger contingent with the CHP. These CHP officers are putting on full riot gear as these officers finally prepare to enter the picture here and make their way over to the quad. So we're just getting our last glimpse here as we head back for fuel, but we wanted to get you that shot because we saw a large number of black and whites pulling into this discrete parking lot not too far away from the quad. They are suiting up and getting ready to go in.